So what is emotional hygiene? You know what hygiene is, obviously. We talk about, you know, personal hygiene, public kind of hygiene. So emotional hygiene is to kind of clean up, to use the metaphor, okay? Some of the emotional stuff that's rough, like sandpaper, okay? It's rough on us. Usually it's rough on us. It also is rough on those around us sometimes. We all know that. Okay, we've been on both sides. Okay, it's like sandpaper. What we're trying to do is make it, you know, I don't know, they used to say lapis lazuli was the metaphor. You know lapis? That blue stone? You've got lapis. Wonderful, yeah, great, thanks. Lapis lazuli, yeah, it's a blue stone, got little flecks of gold things in it. Thank you. And often comes from Afghanistan. In the old texts, excuse me. In the old text, when they talk about smoothness, they usually talk about lapis lazuli, okay? So that's kind of the opposite of sandpaper here, emotionally, okay? So emotional hygiene is to, you know, make our emotions more like lapis lazuli, okay? Make it more like honey, you know, that it glides. You know, I'm going to date myself, but when I went to college, there was a guy by the name of, I remember his nickname, what's his name now? They called him Silk. Played for UCLA, great basketball player. If I knew the name, you'd know him.
Chamberlain?
Huh? No. Anyway, and they called him Silk because he was so smooth on the court. He was like a ballet dancer. Okay, so that's kind of what we're looking at in terms of our emotional hygiene, is to make our stuff smooth like a ballet dancer. Okay, and let's talk about that a little more because that's important. So first we have to recognize. That's a key. Often these, sometimes we call them, in Tibetan we call them numompa, and in Sanskrit klesha. Some of you know those terms. Okay, this is the sandpaper. This is the roughness of our emotions. Sometimes they're aggressive, you know, things like anger, jealousy. Okay, they have an aggressive tone. Extreme competition, okay, putting someone else down. Okay, sometimes so those are the ones we call kind of aggressive or aversion, pushing away others. Okay, and then we have ones that are pulling people towards us, attraction. Okay, and sometimes that's very strong. Okay, so these so-called destructive emotions, they destroy our peace. Okay, they take us away from our balance. They take us away from the present. They take us away from that, you know, gliding, silk, smooth, honey-like stuff, and make it kind of rough. Okay, so the aggressive aversion stuff push others away, and the ones that are, you know, pulling the other way are like desire, strong desire, you know, compulsive stuff, addictive kind of stuff. These things, you know, kind of pull strong towards, okay, both getting us out of balance. Okay, so destructive emotion destroying our peace, our balance. Okay, so first we need to recognize them, because sometimes these things happen subliminally, right? You know, like the negative judgment stuff. Many of us have that record playing a lot. You know, when we see, hear, or think, usually of somebody else, we put them down. Usually we put them down. And we do the same thing with ourselves. Often we just, you know, we compare with others and we put ourselves down. And often it happens nearly subliminally and often not aware of it. If we start to turn in and observe what's going on here now, inside, what am I thinking? What are my feelings? What's my mood? What are my attitudes? We can start recognizing these things more, okay? So sometimes when I teach meditation, afterwards people come up to me and they say, you know, I've always thought I was a pretty happy person. And I say, well, great. And they say, well, and then I started meditating. And I say, great. And then they say, you know, I think I'm going crazy. And I say, great. Or sometimes I say, congratulations. Yeah. I say, because that stuff's always going on. You haven't recognized it. So it's a little painful sometimes to recognize all of our stuff, because we all have a lot of stuff, okay? And sometimes it's a little painful to see that, okay? But that's growth, okay? That's growth. Yeah. So recognition is very important. How do we do that? Spend more time just looking in, right now. What am I thinking? What's going through my mind? What am I feeling? Okay. What are even the sensations in my body? What are my attitudes, my kind of general mood? All that stuff. Just check up. So recognition, and then cleansing. Okay. Destructive emotions I mentioned. So cleansing is going to be, it's not suppressing, okay? We all know what suppressing stuff is, because, we've all done that, okay? You try to just push it down, out of sight, out of mind, but of course it doesn't go away, right? And it usually comes back stronger. So that's not so healthy, to suppress the so-called negative or destructive emotions, okay? So what do we try to do? We try to get smart. Okay, because the mind is very, very tricky, okay? So we have to be very tricky to work with this tricky mind, okay? And so what we try to do is learn ways to transform, actually transform, okay? So how do you make, see if I got this right, how do you make butter? You seen anybody make butter? Some of you people make butter? Yeah, okay. What do you start with? Huh? Cream. Okay, you start with cream. In the old ways, the way the Tibetans do it, they have these long, used to be wood, now they use the PCV stuff sometimes. Thick tubes, maybe a meter and a half long, and they churn it. They put a thing going in and out, churn it. Churn the cream. And then what's the end product? Butter. Butter. And where's the cream? I'm sorry?
Both places,
everywhere, both places. Okay, where's the cream? Huh?
It's transformed.
Transformed? Gone. Yeah. There's no more cream. It's butter. Okay? So that's what we're trying to do. That's transformation. We're trying to actually change these so-called negative, harmful, destructive emotions into something positive, so that there's no residual, okay, of the negativity. Okay? So that's very different, you can see, than suppressing it. When we suppress it, it's not so, we're not so aware of it, but it's there and it'll come back. Okay? When we transform it, it's gone. Okay? At least that particular emotion at that time. Doesn't mean all of our, for example, anger is going to be gone when we transform one time. Doesn't mean that. We have to do more work to get that anger completely transformed. Possible, we'll talk about that. But so that's what we mean by cleansing.